Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions in the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to Justice Gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. On this show, I interview lawyers ditching the billable hour and experts who can help attorneys move beyond billing time. Thanks to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes. More on them later, and use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED when signing up. You get 10% off, and it supports the show. The best way to support the show is to share it with someone you know. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. I want to welcome a very special guest on the Law Subscribed podcast, Chelsea Williams, and to be a guest of her podcast, Always and Never About Money. Love that I'm doing this for a second time. And Chelsea, thanks so much for being here and for having me.
Yeah, you too.
So just before we get started, and for Chelsea's listeners, I'll give a quick intro next. But Chelsea, who are you? What do you do? And tell us a little bit about the pod.
Yeah, so my title these days is Chief Financial Architect because my specialty is money. And when it comes to money, my listeners, you guys know it's always and never about the money. And especially in the spaces that we share, there's a lot to unpack and a lot that has happened over the past decade around money and business that I'm really excited to talk about.
Me too. So I'm Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I offer legal services on a subscription basis, subscription and flat fee. For the savvy out there, I just will say I'm like a fractional general counsel as a service for freelancers, small business owners, and everyday people. And the podcast is not, it really has nothing to do with the practice, although it definitely helps the practice. The podcast is for lawyers who want to stop billing time and use alternative business models to deliver legal services. And I got to say, I love Chief Financial Architect because when you use the subscription model and membership model like we do, you're more of an architect than you are like a problem solver because you're building a solution for the future. So gosh, that is so good, like that use of architect. And I think I've had people on my podcast before talk about like when you're doing problem avoidance legal work, you're like an architect or an engineer. So like that you're leveraging that terminology to help explain in a title what you do for your clients. Kudos to you. That's a good choice of words there.
That's right. And it has so much meaning behind it. And you kind of, pointed towards that in business and in life and in money and in what we're doing. I think the important thing to recognize is that you get to build your own blueprint, right? And even with like an architect, we're doing the thing and building the vision and the plan, but like it's all based off what you tell us that you want. And especially with our industries and what we've been able to do with our business, I feel like we've broken an age-old mold that it was just overdue in both of our industries. Like one of the reasons that I chose legal to focus my finance expert on is because our industries have so many similarities, so many mindsets that I think we're holding us back as an industry. Do you see that on the legal?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. And really it's only been for like 2 or 3 generations, right? Because the billable hour didn't really come into its own for attorneys until like the late 60s, early 70s, really whenever that antitrust case took place where the bar associations used to set the flat fees you were allowed to charge for certain things, and it was deemed anti-competitive price fixing. And so actually the lawyers like looked to like the CPAs and were like, hey, look at this billable hour thing. Let's start doing this. And it just kind of took over private practice. And and that has definitely created some mindset problems about time equals money, which means the longer things take, the more money you make, and the quicker you are and the more efficient you are, the less money you make. So your more experienced, better attorneys actually make your firm less money, which is a massive problem. So yes, the mindset and getting people out of that mindset is a really hard thing to do. And what the subscription model does is it actually inverses it. So it's like the less time I spend on something, the more money I make, which is hard for lawyers to get over that mindset when they've been billing their time.
It is. It's a completely different way to approach how you're billing. And I mean, subscription model billing, there are so many perks to it. Like you said, it's so one of the downfalls of the hourly work. And look, like accountants and CPAs had been doing this for years too. Some of them are still doing it. I can get a client and see that the monthly fee, what they're paying for bookkeeping swings drastically. And it's just, it creates so much frustration and it creates opportunity to nitpick and look at things and be like, well, why? Whereas the subscription model, it promotes efficiency. It holds us as business owners accountable to maintaining those margins and the quality of the deliverables. And it is a huge mindset for both of our industries because we kind of went through this at the same time. The billable hour, tracking time, those were what we converted to, but now it's some of the biggest pain points for both of us. And that flat fee subscription model really alleviates that. And I like to compare it to, when I started my business in 2017, one of my goals was I want to be completely online, remote. All of my team members, I don't want to have an office, and this is how I want to operate my business. Well, back then it was kind of rare,
Yeah.
and when I would talk to law firms about remote options, it was like, no, no, that is not a thing. We need the office and the chair and the marble, and we need this aesthetic. Just that's how law firms work. We can't do that. And so then what happened? COVID broke their belief, shattered it, and has changed it drastically.
It, yeah, and at the end of the day, though, if you're a business owner and you're charging clients a lot of money, which billable hour lawyers do, they need to justify it. And so the marble and the mahogany and the fancy furniture and high-rise office space, like that's a justification for the high fee that they're charging. But now when everything moves online, or when a lot of things have now shifted, like you've talked about, you can adapt the way you're delivering those services and the client expectations change too. And so if you don't have a fancy office and you lack this justification, well, first of all, your overhead is significantly lower if you move virtual, so you can afford to charge less, number one. Number two is that, yeah, client expectations have changed. And so, but what does that charging less look like? Does it look like just lower billable rates? Well, no lawyer ever wants to lower their billable rates, but there could be a different way to approach the business. And so I'm curious to know, in 2017 when you launched, were you doing flat fee? Were you still doing hourly? Like, when did you switch to this recurring flat fee that you're charging your law firm clients?
Yeah, so I started out flat fee. So my story before I started my business plays in a lot to how I approached when I started. I was in a traditional setting where we had that, and in my world, we were really good at commoditizing ourselves, and not delivering proactively. There was this stigma of like over promising and under delivering
Mhm.
that I saw. And so, to speak to what you said earlier, we have to approach this differently. We have to perceive this differently. So in my mind, I was like, well, I need to add value because I don't have a fancy office for you to walk into. And so I have to create this perceived value like from the very beginning. And so when I started, it was with flat fee and it was so uncomfortable for me. Can I just say that? I'm curious to hear your side of how you approach this too, but it was so uncomfortable for me for the first time to have somebody on the phone and be like, "What's $1,000 a month?" When I'm used to like an average of 250 a month where I come from, it was like, like that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I took, and part of it just has to do with like my approach to the my target market, right? And so most lawyers are competing for either like large corporate clients or high net worth individuals. And I was just like, I'm just not even going to compete in that space. And so for me, my prices are actually so low that I had to let people know, no, yes, I am an attorney. Subscription Attorney LLC is a law firm. And yes, it's really only $20 a month and $50 a page for the most basic of legal work to get started with me. And so I sort of had the opposite problem because I took a different approach. Now, that's not to say attorneys who want to ditch billing time and use subscription can't charge a premium. And by the way, I do, right? Like the goal for me still with even with latent legal market clients who can't afford billable hours or don't even want to think about it because they need pricing certainty. I have much higher level subscriptions than $20 a month and $50 a page, right? It gets up into the thousands of dollars a month. But for me anyway, I could start them out at a low entry fee, get them used to that recurring bill. But then if they want me to stop counting pages, the $50 a page, then they could bundle in projects by starting to pay a higher amount a month. And so I'm able to ease them into that relationship, get them used to it, show them all the value I'm providing and get them used to contacting me before there's a problem. And then I can upsell them. I mean, frankly, ethically, it's saving them money to subscribe at a higher subscription price where I'm no longer counting pages, because now I could work on way more pages for them, far more contracts a month, and that they could offload to me without having to worry about counting the pages. Now it's just 10 projects a month or however many projects a month. I do custom pricing. All my pricing's on my website. But I do custom pricing for clients at different levels that don't squarely fall into a particular level that's on my site. And so now it's even easier for them because they can budget exactly that amount a month. And if they go over or outside the scope of the subscription benefits, then we could have that. I'll have that conversation with them about, I think it makes sense for you to go up a subscription tier, or we need to adjust your pricing. Because looking back over the last 3 months, I've been doing 11, 12, 15 projects for you, and we have to go up a subscription level because you're giving me more work, which is good. And it's only going to cost you this much more annually because all my pricing is transparent and on a recurring basis. And it's a no-brainer for them because they're like, oh yeah, sure. So for like another 5,000 a year or 10,000 a year, depending on the needs. Well, for them, that's nothing because annualized, it's less than, $1,000 a month more. And for
Yeah.
me, it's great because I have that recurring revenue that I could count on. And as a true solo owner operator, that's great for me.
Yes. Now I'm curious, is that how you started, or did how you packaged things and those kind of trigger points evolve over time?
So I've had some changes to the model a little bit. But when I got started, I had for like 2 to 3 years been figuring out how can I develop and deliver legal services on a subscription. And I tried to build that inside the constraints of another firm and found that too hard. So I had to leave to start my own practice. And at the time of recording, I'm a little over 2 years into that journey. So even though I've only been practicing it for 2 years, I did have at least that amount of time to strategize and come up with that and get myself out of the billable hour mindset. So it's kind of been more like a 4 to 5 year mindset journey. But in the 2 years that I've actually been doing it, I originally had higher per page pricing and lower small business level monthly pricing where I stopped counting pages. And so I actually lowered the monthly price from 100 or the per page price from $100 a page to $50 a page, and found no one hired me for $100 a page, and a lot of people hired me for $50 a page. And I had a couple of subscribers at the $1,500 a month level where I was doing way more work and far more value that I was providing for them than what they were paying me. And when you're in a subscription business, you want to provide more value than what they're paying you for every month. And I also changed my business tiers from I used to have small, medium, large sized business, but
Mm.
nobody understood what that meant. And I didn't even understand what that meant. So I just made it simple. I just made it business level and business plus. So are you a business that you want me to take care of some of your contracts or way more of your legal work? Right. So I like simplifying that tier down to just a 3-tier structure to a 2-tiered structure, business level and business plus. More people seem to understand that. And I understood that better. And that's the thing. Like when you're building a client centric business, just ask yourself, do I understand this? Does this make sense? Would I pay this? Would I pay this amount, for these, for this value? And if the answer is no, then you got to change something. Because if you can't even understand your own business, then your potential clients definitely can't.
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. Yeah. And I think the word that stuck out to me the most while you were talking was practice. Like, you have to practice this model. And I think a lot of people hesitate in transitioning to a model like that because they don't know where to start. They're scared that they're not going to put set their pricing where it needs to be. But during transitions like this, like, we need a starting point. We need somewhere to start that we are reasonably comfortable with so that we can jump off the cliff, because the key is in the follow through and follow up. Right? In order to even create a subscription-based business, you're going off of data, right? You have to have that data. And some of that is not even in the numbers. It's like you said, how are we speaking to clients? How are we designing something that has perceived value? And what does that journey look like? And so it was kind of the same for me, and it has certainly evolved over time, and it's still evolving, because things are happening organically. But when I first started, I included a 1-hour meeting with all of my monthly accounting clients. So I would meet with them for an hour because I'm new, right? Like I'm not an attorney. I don't know anything about practicing law, but I know numbers and I know how to, have conversations with numbers. And so for me, that hour with each client per month was my time to get that picture of like, what are they asking? Where are the pain points? What else can I offer? And over time, we kind of developed this stacked services platform where, I mean, I've had conversations with attorneys who are sitting in their car on their lunch break because they're going to leave big law and go out on their own. So before they even open their doors, they can work with us to
Mhm.
some capacity, right? And then as they grow and scale, kind of like you identified your client journey and what and their needs, we've kind of done the same thing where as you grow and scale, there are different services that are going to get you to that next level that, we can engage in when the time comes and we have those same metrics. I love how you are looking out for your people, right? You're looking back and you're able to say, look, this is what we've done over the past 3 months. So right now it makes sense for you to upgrade to this new package and like being able to observe that and foresee that on their behalf. That right there is perceived value.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's easy when I'm the only person who's doing all the work, and it becomes harder as you grow and hire more people, I'm sure. And it's then you need systems, you need tracking, and you need to actually gather those metrics. But when like you're literally the only person doing the work, it is a little easy to know like, oh yeah, I've been doing way more work for the client than what they're paying me. But for my listeners' benefit, for typical listeners of Law Subscribed, you have a subscription business, right? And so I just want to let them know that the website is yourcoursesolution.com. Link in the show notes, obviously. And there's a services tab that I want to draw my listeners' attention to that I want to ask you about because it looks like you've done a really good job of defining the benefits of hiring you. And you do offer one-time solutions, which are aptly named one-time solutions, which like, why not? Make it simple, right?
Yes.
Um, and then you have your ongoing monthly services that you offer. But something that I see that you've done really well here is for your ongoing monthly services, your subscriptions, you have the includes section, which are your subscriber benefits, right? So if a law firm subscribes to your company to take care of these things, this is what you're taking care of for them. And it's really easy to understand. It's very straightforward. It's kind of a lot, but that's good to have a lot of benefits, and you're not overwhelming me with any more than just these benefits at a time per web page. So, for example, monthly reconciliation, monthly three-way reconciliation with IOLTA accounts, your annual 1099s and quarterly 1099s, annual corp or LLC report filing, and even one access to, and this is key because I do the same thing, access to one-on-one office hours with you. And access is different than like a guaranteed we meet for an hour every month. So it puts the onus back on the subscriber to say, hey, you reach out to me when you need me. And you only let them schedule that time when you're already available, I'm assuming, right? Did I get that right?
No, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
tell me, how did you, because one of the hard things for the lawyers to do, and this is they could extrapolate from how you decide to do it, is if I'm going to have a subscription practice, how do I define those subscription benefits and how do I phrase it and stuff? And I think you've done a really great job. So how were you able to do that, and why did you decide to include what you included as subscription benefits at the different levels?
Yeah. So for my industry, it's pretty cut and dry. I would say for the legal industry, there's a little bit more nuance, which is why I think it's important to consider the menu a la carte option when we're looking at law firm subscriptions, kind of like you do. We have these projects that are different. But for me, our deliverables are so repeatable. I mean, finance operates 4 quarters a year. Every calendar year it resets. It's so predictable and repetitive. And so for us, we just know what has to be done and when. And the list that you see on the website is not even all they get.
Hmm.
Because in my industry, like I said, we're notorious for over-promising and under-delivering. And when I started, I set out to break all of the things that people complain about when working with people like us. And some of those had to be built over time. Like some of the monthly proactive services, we didn't know what that should include and we tried so many different ways to, for example, engage with clients to make it happen. Like when I started my doing, 1 hour a month with every client, what I found is that they never did pre homework. They never came prepared. Their eyes would glaze over for the hour. and then they would forget everything we said, right? And so that's why I developed the open office hours. I am available if you choose to be proactive and engaged with me because we can only match energy
Right.
and do so much in this space.
Yeah, it probably doesn't come as a surprise to you or any of the listeners. Like I get reached out to on LinkedIn weekly by service providers for lawyers, right? Like, from time to time I will like check out their website and see what their offerings are. But I have not seen somebody offer those like office hours with themselves. Like and it's not like a moat. It's not like a competitive moat where like no other, financial help for lawyers can offer that, but you are. And I'm just not seeing that being an offering. So I mean, first of all, kudos to you for breaking out of the mold, to do that because that's really something. And another thing that I see is you even break out like the payroll processing as a separate monthly subscription because I get reached out to by service providers all the time, and it's like an all or nothing approach, which a lot of lawyers take. We allow unbundling of legal services in most jurisdictions these days, but still lawyers are like, no, I'm going to do all or nothing. But here you're breaking this out. So talk about that.
Yeah, and it's 100% client centric. Because I started bundling a lot of things together, and what would happen is they would get nitpicked. Like, "Well, will you take the price down if I just do payroll myself?" Or, things like that. And so and with three-way reconciliation, sometimes they handle that in-house. And so our thinking around it was, look, the truth is some people don't need these things. Like, if we have one person on payroll and it's a salary and we can set it up on auto pay, why wouldn't we save that client that money?
Mhm.
With us if they don't need it. And so we really did build it with the client in mind so that they can take what they wanted to take and they know what they could leave and do themselves, to give them those options.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where it's about outsourcing, right? Because we the attorneys, especially on a subscription basis, we want people to outsource all their legal stuff to us from now until the end of time. I mean, basically, right? And yet lawyers do have a hard time outsourcing things themselves, right?
Mm.
And so again, different target market, but I think you could apply some similar tactics and philosophy of like, so you are trying to, and frankly, I think it's easier for me to sell to another person or business to outsource than it is to sell to lawyers. We are tough cookies to crack. So how is it that you're able, like, what have been some successful techniques for you to be able to say, well, stop doing this in house, outsource it to me? And it's for, I mean, it's for a predictable monthly price is like a huge selling point, pricing certainty, right? But maybe that's it. But like, what have you found what worked for you when you're selling this idea of fractional services that you're outsourcing?
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider your audience, right? And you're right. Very quickly after I chose the legal industry as a niche, I'm like, man, I couldn't have chosen like a harder veil to pierce over here, because it's so closed circle. But I think that I also have a slight advantage because they don't understand what I'm talking about. There's already a lack of understanding there. And so, to a certain level, they're already coming to us from a place of vulnerability. And there is a very specific psychology when it comes to lawyers and how they think and view these things. And so, for us, it was building that feeling of trust, like making sure that they knew, look, it's okay that you don't understand this and that you have 3 years worth of a financial disaster because it's fixable, and along the way, we're going to teach you. So that's another component of what we do is we value education, which is why we match the energy and have the open office hours. If you want to learn more about these things, and we tell people, ask your questions shamelessly. So our space is not well understood by the masses in the first place. And so that alone, I feel like gives us a bit of an advantage. And then the other piece is like, I'm a numbers person. You know how in sales calls, people will use the calculator and be like, well, this is how much time you're going to save and efficiency. And really, we're an investment with an ROI, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Well, we are an investment with an ROI because people that are doing it themselves or don't have an adequate service are probably looking at garbage on their numbers, garbage in, garbage out. Right. And I use the example with people if you're spending 10 hours a month on your books and you could be billing $3,000, Let's say you pay $500, that's $2,500 extra that you could earn per month instead of spending it here, and instead spend that attention at a high level because that's where the value comes in with these things.
Right.
And so it's a language, and communicating the benefit is like bridging that gap between like accounting terms and language, but making it understandable to someone who doesn't speak it.
When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at 650.com and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form and scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice, but with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show. Oh man, yeah, this is really something. So going down your list here, I do see that you mentioned this earlier, but you completely unbundled the IOLTA reconciliation through a reconciliation. So like for law firms that like I'm good with everything else, but I just want to do this. And that even seems to be, and another thing you do here is you have this minimum investment here. How about you tell my listeners a little bit about that? What's the purpose of like stating the minimum investment? I mean, as a potential user of your services, I could tell you my perspective on it. What is okay? Like that gives me that level sets, right? Like this is an idea of I need to at least spend this amount, but I'm going to spend more, but it's going to be at a minimum this amount. So am I interpreting it the way you intended, or is there some other intention too?
Yeah, there is. This is a great segue into the mindset around, what we do and the molds that we had to break because I had to get used to remember I told you when I first went out, I'm asking for $1,000 a month and I'm used to 250. That was like imposter syndrome
Yeah.
for me, right? So I had to get used to telling people just straight up, we are more expensive than most. And it goes into that client centering thing because what we identified is that our best clients start at that $500 a month fee, right? And if we're speaking with somebody and they're under it, like we still give them resources. Like you can find cheaper options than us, absolutely. And we've even had people come in who didn't meet the minimum requirement and couldn't afford it. So, like, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm a money person. I'm not going to let you sign up for us if you truly can't afford it. We're going to be honest, right?
Right.
And they have gone and found a cheaper option with the goal of getting to the level of coming back to us. And so that has been really powerful for us because it's a mindset thing. And it's also recognizing like who can we impact the most, truly and honestly. And so that's kind of how we set those parameters. And then of course there's the desensitization to our fees because we're not cheap. Period. And so if you make it through scrolling through our prices and you still book a call, we know that we don't have to overcome that price component.
Right. Right. No, that's great that's a great reason to list it. I will say, I mean, it depends on your growth goals and stuff too, is like what I try to do in exactly your example, like somebody comes to me and they're just starting their business. They don't have any money yet that they're generating, right? Because that's sometimes when they approach lawyers. I need a lawyer. I need to set up my business. I need an operating agreement. I need articles of organization, whatever, right? And so I offer super low pricing at that for that reason because I want them to be able to get started and have a successful business so that they stay with me, but then subscribe at a much higher level after they've reached certain revenue goals, right? And so like, but I'm trying to keep that in-house. I'm trying to like keep that with me. So is like, have you thought of like automations or incorporating like Gen AI or like some other things where you might be able to offer like a super low touch? We're still going to help you at a lower cost to get you to the point where you could subscribe to our higher packages?
We are researching AI, and AI in the accounting space and the bookkeeping space, we just have to be leery, right? Because garbage in, garbage out, and we have to keep checks and balances for sure. But we have in the past, and we do keep the option open where, like for brand new people going out on their own, we do have a service where we will set everything up for them and we will do the first 3 months because that's pretty predictable, right? And then we will reconvene after the 3 months to see, are we a good fit? Should we explore other options? Because another thing we do, like in the spirit of over delivering that you'll never see on our website, is we keep a back end manual of how we do of everything that we do for you, and it is yours.
Mhm.
And the reason that we do that is because the most important thing with your finances is consistency in how it's being managed. So even if somebody isn't a good fit for us or vice versa, we want them to have that to maintain that consistency.
Right. Then just finishing up here, going down the list is, the law firm CFO program, which I have to imagine is your like all-encompassing total package. The law firm is ready to completely outsource all the financial stuff to you, and you're just going to take all that on, whatever it is, kind of a thing, right?
So the CFO program is my favorite right now because it's actually pretty new and it sums up everything I've learned over the past almost 10 years. And it's designed, there are a few things that we do for the law firm, but it's designed to teach them how to be the CFO of their law firm in life.
Oh,
So for the first year, because it's a 12-month program, we do most of it in the first 4 months. For the first year, we're doing the things and I'm coaching them on what to look for. Because money is, I mean, you can delegate it, but you have to be so careful because fraud is real and people are sneaky and everybody is not to be trusted. So I believe in teaching people how to manage your money and know if something is funny or off just for your own sake. So the program is kind of one to be graduated and then you can delegate it, but you know how to manage it, right? Or you can do it yourself.
I First of all, I think all lawyers should just delegate it. But knowing your market that you're trying to serve, lawyers just love to learn how to do things. And like they want to do it themselves. And so the fact that you offer that, so it's not what I thought it was, but the fact that you offer a program of here's how you could do it yourself if that's really what you want to do and you really want to be educated on all these things, which I know lawyers do. Like that's the thing. Then here you go. We offer that. But maybe, I mean, I know you said it's new, but I have a prediction here, and that is that as lawyers learn more about what goes into it, they're going to be like, I think I just want to hire you instead. I know I've paid you this money for you to teach me this stuff, but I think I'd rather just outsource it now that I actually understand everything. But that makes them a better partner because now they actually understand the stuff that you're helping them with, right? And that closes that gap of you said they don't know anything, and that's one of the ways you're able to sell them in the first
Yeah,
place.
they can be their own advocate for sure. And let me just clarify. So the CFO program steps stacks on top of what we call the financial foundation, which is the monthly bookkeeping. So I agree with you that all law firms should outsource things like bookkeeping, payroll, all of the technical stuff. The CFO program starts them on the 10,000-foot view.
Mhm.
So you have to already have the mindset that I want to delegate the books and I want to get the value. And so here's the importance of why they shouldn't want to delegate everything with their money, right? Because just having there are 5 key financial players. And so the program teaches them about all of their players. And as business owners, there is business money is your personal money. We rely on this for our livelihood and the livelihood of our team, right? And so there's a personal side when you own a business and there's a business side. And so those are the pieces that everybody needs to know themselves.
Here's another prediction I have. A couple more predictions. At least as it relates to attorneys who are trying to do something innovative and shift the mindset from billing time to delivering value on a consistent basis and increase efficiencies and automations, right? And that is I see an explosion of solo practice attorneys like me who don't actually want to grow and hire, but just leverage each other and independent contractors, right, to take on overflow work or additional referrals or bring in partners, but just operate as a silo because the technology makes it so easy to do that now. And I also see, like the state of Illinois changing their rules on fees, where I could skip the IOLTA account and go right into my operating account as long as I'm offering a fixed fee So the fact that you've already like unbundled this three-way IELTA reconciliation, like there will still be needs for that, but I think they're going to seriously be reduced, in particular in Illinois, right? And other jurisdictions as they do that. So the fact that it's kind of already unbundled makes it easy for you to just like, if it becomes less of a used thing, it's unbundled. But then also, like, I really like the payroll processing thing that you talk about, because it's not just for employees, but you also talk about independent contractors. And I really see that. Look, like I'm only 2 years into this, right? And I'm already planning and preparing for eventually outsourcing more and more to independent contractors as I grow. And I'm only going to be able to scale it so much using AI and automations. I will eventually need to start outsourcing. So I want to outsource the worrying about the financial stuff for the contractors, right? And the fact that you're already sort of carving out that this is a service that you offer is just not something I'm seeing from other competitors in your space. And I think and so going back to the prediction, I think that need, while the IELTS stuff will decrease, this need will significantly increase amongst more and more solo practitioners, especially as we see the big law attorneys say, what am I doing? Why am I giving up any semblance of a normal life to bill a bunch of hours and maybe make a bunch of money and then, be on my third or fourth spouse and be estranged from my kids? I think we're going to see them abandon big law, start their own practice like me, and they're going to have these kind of needs. And if they were in big law, they're especially not going to know anything about the financial stuff.
Yes, yeah, exactly, but that's why the day and age that we're in is so exciting. Like, we are shattering so many belief structures and systems, and like we were talking about in the very, very beginning, like, you truly have the ability to design your business in life, to choose the people that you wanna work with, to choose the things that you're doing, to stay in your zone of genius and add that value, right? And I think that I know, because I've seen it before, in the space of law, you can be a solopreneur and reach financial freedom. Absolutely. I think at the highest, I've seen a solo with maybe a couple support staff break 1,000,000 with one person and a couple people helping. I mean, there is no more cookie cutter way to do this. And that makes it more important for us to really figure out what do we want? What are we asking of our business to give us personally? And how are we going to do that in a way that protects our time? Because, like you said, in both of our industries, burnout, it was the norm. That was expected. I'm sure when people graduate law school, they're like, all right, I'm going to work crazy hours for the next 5 years of my career, or, whatever the case may be. And for accountants, it's like, okay, I am in a cave from January 1st to April 15th. Nobody asked me, call me, like so many opportunities are opening up, which is why we have to remain agile and leverage that technology and consider things like a subscription fee business. I mean, it's now is the time.
So as we start, time has flown. Speaking of time, and as we start to round out our joint podcast episode, I want to know, like, what technology are you using to for your business? Like, I noticed when you click on one of the Let's Meet buttons, it's integrated with Lawmatics, so I was able to figure out one. But like, what's some other technology that you're using?
So our biggest platform for internal use, we definitely use Lawmatics. We want it to be relatable to the legal space, and so that does a lot for us. We are so systems driven, and I think that's so important too. Just like you said, even when it's you yourself, like, leverage technology as much as you can until you grow. And so our hub, we communicate on Slack. Team camaraderie is huge. I've got like a team of 12, so communication is huge. But our like the heartbeat platform of our business is Asana,
Mhm.
that manages tasks and we can communicate. But I feel like we've really done a good job of really mastering our softwares and maximizing what we can do with them. And like, we're always looking too, especially with AI, like we're starting to dabble in different areas to see how we can integrate that. Because again, subscription based, business models forces you to always keep that in mind.
And I don't even think we said this at the top of the show. We met at ABA Tech Show. Thank you, Steve Fretzen, for hosting that social hour.
Shout out, Steve.
And so, like, where we met was a show dedicated to technology, right? So obviously we're both super into that. I've heard Asana on the show many times, even from legal practitioners. 'Cause like you, I have also speak to people who are not actually practicing attorneys, but Asana keeps coming up again and again and again. And I will say I dabbled with Asana a little bit. I've dabbled with ClickUp. I've dabbled with a lot of things, but I'm still looking for that solution that works the best with time blocking for the way I like to work. And right now, that's just my Google Workspace account. Between Google Docs and Google Sheets and my Google Calendar, I am kind of able to just schedule and plan for everything that I want to. And and it might just be because I'm truly on my own. And maybe these other tools are much better suited to when you have teams and you assign tasks and you do all these other things. I'm just on my own. But heard great things about Asana. So that's another one for Asana. How about for like the actual payment processing? Like what are you is that something that you are able to integrate into Asana or using like, Stripe or one of these other platforms or just QuickBooks or how are you doing the payment processing?
Yeah, so our accounting software, the accounting software we set a lot of people up on does all of that for us. And I mean, we can add I like the flexibility in it where people have options. They can pay I mean, it's really easy to pay us. We have a lot of different ways to do that. So we made sure that that was not a point of friction or gonna limit anybody on how or when they could pay us.
And is that something that you're able to then automate, or do you have to go in and invoice every month, or how does that work for your law firm?
Completely automated, and the beauty of
Yeah.
subscription, like, we don't have to spend time doing any of this. It all happens without me clicking a button.
How about it? Yeah. It's like, you don't actually want to do this, but it's kind of set it and forget it, right? Like you set up the automation, they subscribe at that level, they do the onboarding that gets the first payment in, and then from there on out until they're unsubscribed. As
Yes,
long as
and
you're providing the service.
not only that, like, you set it and forget it, but you also have to follow through with it and have systems and procedures behind it, right? Like, following up with money, which I know and I've seen a lot of law firms struggle with AR, collecting what they build, right? So again, it's building on top of those systems and automations and putting reminders into place and having actual consequences of if you don't pay by X date. Super important in the follow up.
Right. Right. I have only had a couple of subscribers over the last 2 years who like the payments didn't go through and they didn't update to a new payment method, and whether that was like they hit their limit for the month or they're just their card expired and didn't get updated. For whatever reason, they just unsubscribe. But my engagement agreement is crystal clear. If your payment doesn't come through, you're unsubscribed, right? So like it must come through. And then if there is like a 2 or 3 day lapse where there's no payment and then they update their credit card for those 3 days, we are disengaged. And I think that's crystal clear in my engagement agreement. Because what I do, and this is, I mean, I know you can't do this as much like to the nature of the market you're serving, but for me, it's like I let my clients unsubscribe and resubscribe whenever they want. I make it really easy to unsubscribe and resubscribe because it's introducing friction for them. So I have had a few clients now over the 2 years where they've unsubscribed and resubscribed when they need additional legal services. And then they unsubscribe again. But like at the base level, it's only $20 a month,
Right.
you know? So like at a certain point, it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna stay subscribed. Right.
Yeah.
And I went through a similar thing with like Disney Plus, right? Where it was like, okay, I just wanted to watch The Mandalorian. So I'm gonna subscribe for a month. I'm gonna binge watch The Mandalorian, then I'm gonna unsubscribe. Okay, now I just want to watch season two, and so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna. And then I waited until it was over, and then I binged it, and then also I eventually I had a kid, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna resubscribe to Disney Plus now because that is, that's what
Yeah.
we have to do. But I already had the account and login information, right? And so the point is it's just like, like for your listeners, for your podcast, 'cause I know it's not necessarily applicable to you and your business, but if lawyers are listening into your show, I just want to convey that, you pick a low monthly price that for the market you're trying to serve is a no-brainer. And since I'm trying to serve the latent legal market, people that have money to spend, they just need pricing certainty in the legal services, that they want. That's how I pick that price. If you're serving small medical practices, which we've had Matt Stevens on the podcast, Provider Legal, that's going to be a much higher monthly price than $20 a month, but it's going to be a no-brainer price for those types of small medical businesses, right? And so whatever market you're trying to serve, that's what you have to think about. That's the business model I take. And I let them unsubscribe, and then they don't have a lawyer. And they were used to having a lawyer, even if it was just for a month or two. And so, and I make it really easy for them to come back. So easy unsubscribe, easy resubscribe. If you can allow it. I know with litigation and immigration and like there's some practice areas
Yeah.
where you're less able to do that. So your engagement agreement has to account for that. But also, if you're doing just like maintenance plans for like post divorce decree or marital settlement
Mm,
agreement, post you get your green card and you need to comply, post you're the criminal case and you get on probation, now you need to comply with probation. Like those opportunities post litigation are great subscription opportunities for law firms as well. And then maybe you could adapt a similar approach, although the annual subscription model does seem to work well for those types of things too. But you'd still do a similar thing where if it's an automatic recharge every year, but then when they unsubscribe, it would be like that. So these are the things to think about. So with the little time that we have left, I don't know anything else that you want to cover, Chelsea. I thanks so much for sharing all the wisdom.
yeah, no, I just to bounce off what you said real quick, I really appreciate how you have considered the post-delivery options because I think that they're forgotten about so much. And like, look, for my listeners, we talk about all things business and personal, and there are personal money lessons in every business story. And there, how you went out and you did your research, like, here's an opportunity, the price makes sense, it's a starting point. Let me go with that. Like, there is value in these things and finding that value and looking in the places where some people aren't looking, like with you and the follow through. I mean, the opportunities are there if we know and understand how to find them. And, I appreciate about you that it sounds like even came into your business with just a disruptive mindset in a great way, that you're not thinking the way that the industry told you to think. You're paving your own path, you're doing things differently. You stepped out with that risk, and now people are coming to you and listening to your podcast about, like, how the heck do I do this? Right? And so I really appreciate how you've seen that opportunity and you have the, like, peripheral vision to see all these different pieces and, like, know where to focus.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything special about me. I will say that. I think that circumstances are such that I am a first generation attorney. And I think a lot of the guests that I have on the podcast, because if people want to listen to me talk about my law firm, they could go to matthewcurbis.com, and that's my speaker portfolio. You can see all my speaking engagements there. That's where I talk about myself. And that's why I'm glad we're having this episode where I get to talk a little bit about myself in an episode that will go on as a special one on my podcast. But I mostly highlight the work of other attorneys who have broken out of that mindset and and just business owners like you in general who have and are doing something different and unique. So what I found is a lot of us are first generation attorneys. Like our
Mm.
moms and dads or our grandmas and grandpas weren't practicing lawyers, and like we learned to do it from them, right? So like there's that aspect of it, but also it's mostly women and attorneys of color, and of course women attorneys of color who are going into the profession that wasn't built for them. It was built for attorneys like me, white male
Mhm.
attorneys, and they have no choice but to find a better way to practice law. And so they're ditching the billable hour, and they're charging flat fee, and they're charging subscription or some combination of the two, right? And so I'm really following in their footsteps and highlighting their work on the podcast. And I also found another through line is neurodivergence, which I've never been actually
Mm.
diagnosed, though I'm pretty sure I'm probably neurodivergent. And even just the entrepreneur brain is already kind of neurodivergent,
Right,
right?
it's the class itself.
Yeah. And so, so all these, not all these attorneys, but most of the attorneys started their own law firms. And so like
Mhm.
they're probably, they have that entrepreneur brain as well. Most of them first generation attorneys, or the profession was not made for them. And so they're the ones who are really challenging the status quo. And I just thought it would be a good idea and stumbled into some of their work and have my own spin on it.
I love it. I love that. Yeah, we have to be it's 2024, like, I feel like the rules are out, everything's changing, like, we have to be agile, we have to be open-minded, and I think that's where it started for both of us. Regardless of what we were told and what we were doing, what everybody else was doing, we really found our own way and got inspired by other people who were doing the same.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So for my listeners, where can they find you?
Yeah, we've got just go to our website, yourcoresolution.com, and everything you could possibly want to look at is on there. We have so many free resources and tools, so check them out.
And on LinkedIn, it's Chelsea M. Williams, the Money Whisperer, right?
Yes. Yep. That's right. And how about you? For my listeners, where can they go to learn more about you and listen to your podcast?
Well, like you have your title as the Money Whisperer, I'm the subscription attorney, and if you search for that pretty much anywhere, you're going to find me on those platforms. But LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Like I said, you could search the subscription attorney or Matthew Kurbis, and my DMs are open, but I'm always willing to connect with people on there. MatthewKurbis.com, like I said, is my speaker portfolio. The podcast, if you want to subscribe, the best place you could do that for me anyway, so I know who you are, is www.lawsubscribed.com. This year, I switched over to Substack as being the main place that I'm powering the podcast through, and you could watch all the videos through there. I'm starting to upload videos elsewhere, but if you want to see the videos first, that's the best place to see them. And so then it's easier for me to reach out with you. You could comment on shows and things like that. Law Subscribed on every single podcast app, and even ones you've maybe never heard of. And then the law firm is subscriptionattorney.com. I have one more question for you, though, before we wrap up here. A question I like to ask everyone I have on my podcast, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh my gosh, I love that question because it's so random and unrelated. I would not call a hot dog a sandwich because there's like one bun.
So what? So
It's
that
not
means
sandwiched.
you need two buns. What if you put a hot dog in between two buns? Does that make it a sandwich, or you split the bun so it's two pieces?
I think in order for a hot dog to be a sandwich, you would have to cut it in half, cut those in half, strategically align them on a piece of bread, and put another piece of bread on top of it. That is a hot dog sandwich.
Okay, all right. I think that's the third time in almost 100 episodes that that's been the answer.
See, we're onto something here.
Thanks so much again for coming on my show and having me on yours.
Yes, thank you.
And that's our show. Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for being sponsors. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with somebody you think would find value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email Kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.